you on that. I appreciate everybody joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about marketing your services and products to local, state, and federal governments. With us today, going to lead this discussion is Andy Alexander. Andy's the procurement specialist here for the South Central region of PTAC, which is the Indiana Technical Procurement Assistance Center. So without further ado, I think I'm just going to turn it over to Andy.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're broadcasting live here in Columbus, Indiana, on glorious Wednesday, May 5th. It looks like we have over 25 people registered with this webinar, and even one individual as far away as Michigan, which is, of course, we invite everybody to be part of what we're talking about today. Like Bob said, I'm with the Indiana Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And next slide, please. And on the left there are some of the services that me and my counterparts, there's 5 of us in the state of Indiana, that provide free counseling on selling of your services or products to the governments. That includes federal, states, cities, counties, and towns. And those items that are listed there on the left are all different constant things that we specialize in to help your businesses sell to the government. And I'm representing Area 4, which is about 27 counties, about 245 towns that I meander around in during the week and visit with businesses, large and small. And my counterparts are up in the north is Diana and Bob up in Fort Wayne, and Nate in Indianapolis, and Jim down in Evansville. We're all equal as PTAC specialists that will assist you with this journey. And today, of course, I'm focusing on marketing to the governments. Next slide, please. So a PTAC is a Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and they're located in all 50 states, including the Samoa Islands, Puerto Rico, St. Croix, St. Thomas. I've been around since 1985. I've been associated as a consular since 2006. So I think that's well over 15, 16 years. Now down at the bottom, what you don't see today, and we're going to work around this, the last bullet says Indiana PTAC Procurement Specialist can be found at. There's a hyperlink there. And when we send these slides to you, they will appear in yellow. Today, what I've done, where the hyperlinks do not appear, I've taken snapshots of what I'd be taking you into, so you'll see it physically on the screen today. But when you do get the slides, you'll be able to work with these hyperlinks and move in and out of these websites. Then if you have any questions, of course, you can contact me. Next slide. So we'll start off with the towns first. And so we'll call that our first marketing effort. So in Indiana, we actually have over 668 towns, and I've got a link on there, which was Wikipedia. And I'm going to show you on the next slide how I went on Wikipedia and I brought down all the towns. You got to remember, there's more towns to Hoosiers than 668 towns. There's over 900. But towns that are incorporated are towns with governments, with budgets and city clerks. Some have mayors, some have town administrators. Nashville, Indiana, for an example, has a city clerk, but no mayor, but they do have a town council that governs that town. They do have budgets and spending and bids that they put out. But if you go to a town like Gnawbone or Camp Roberts or Bean Blossom there in Brown County, these are unincorporated towns, but they do still have some funding that come to them from counties and cities, state and federal. So today, I always think the best way to do this is take an Indiana map, and if I was a janitorial company, I'd draw a 60-mile circle like I've recommended down there at the bottom from your zip code. Let's say it was from here in Columbus. And then I just, in that circle would be my first year effort to market. And there's about 100 towns within 1 hour of Columbus. And it probably covers as many as 3 to 4 county governments as well. And then we'll call Columbus a city. And then you have the state of Indiana. And if we went out next year, 120 miles, of course, we'd be encroaching on our state borders. And then each year we go out 60 miles, 1 hour trips. This morning I met with a company that wants to do work nationally. So this type of marketing effort at town level wouldn't work. But if I wanted to clean police stations in high schools, grade schools, fire departments, the town parks, I want to do landscaping in those town buildings and around them and that. If you went after, there's over 100 towns within 1 hour of Columbus. So if you went after 10% of that market your first year, that'd be 10 town governments. Well, you got to make sure in your business plan that you work with John Myers, my counterpart here at the Columbus Chamber, through the Small Business Development Center. In there, you would identify, these would be the towns I'd go after. I'd go after them by size, because the larger the town, the more appropriation, the tax base and the money they're going to have for different government projects. And I would identify 10% of them, which would be 10. And if you pick those up as clients to do this type of government work, normally they would be advertising their bids in the county paper or in the town paper. Very seldom do the small town governments have their bids on their website. A couple of them do. You'd be surprised. Some of the towns I go to, like down near New Albany and over towards Madison and up near on the other side of Bloomington, those towns up in there, they actually do advertise their bids on their website. But normally you could just type in bids and then the name of the town in the state of Indiana and their bids will come up. If not, then you need to go to their town papers to take a look at it. But an easier way is create a one-page capability statement and market to all the towns virtually. And this is something as a counselor, my counterparts can all show you. But if you did this approach just to pick up 10 towns over the next 5 years, with 100 towns out there just in a 1 hour market, you'd have a lot of business in the examples of janitorial work or landscaping, because then you'd have to buy more vehicles, more cleaning equipment, more floor buffers, supplies. You'd have to find employees. So this is where it's key that you have a great business plan that shows this growth over the next couple of years. And this is something that a counselor like myself would look at to see how we would market ourselves into this town government. So if we look at the next government on the next slide, which is hold up, I got ahead of myself. This Wikipedia picture here with the yellow arrow, this is an example where I just sorted all the towns alphabetically. But you could capture this on an Excel file and sort them all by population and start in your first year within 60 miles of your town, which ones you would target by size because of the tax base, the number of money that they would have in that. And this is something I can assist you with as part of a marketing effort. The next slide. So in some cases, I have businesses I work with that do not want to work with the federal government, do not want to work with state governments or the states, some cities, but they just want to work at local governments down at the county and the town level, so and city level. So here's an example. Here in Columbus, they do not advertise their bids on their website. You have to go to the different departments in the city to find that out. They advertise most of their bids in the local paper here in Bartholomew County, and you can find them in there as it's published. I'm on the virtual paper email from most towns in my area, but the ones here in this area with the Tribune and that are pretty good about showing those advertisements and that. So it may be something you want to subscribe to. But what I've done, where the two yellow lines are, there's links there you can't see. But if we were to go into the first one on the next slide, this is how, if we clicked on that by typing in bids for Bloomington, this is where the Board of Public Works is advertising an invitation to bid for 8,000 tons of the magnesium chloride, which they're using to put out on the streets for snow and different things. And they're showing the different things that the requirements. And then down where it says bid documents, if we click on that, we can go to the next slide, and it shows more details. Now notice where my arrow's pointing there. There's 26 pages to this bid. I'm not gonna go over this whole bid, but if you found something like this you were reading, or something maybe I sent you through our free bid match services, according to your goods and services, I would read this with you, go over it with you, and I would tell you, well, I think this is a pretty viable bid that we could put a proposal together on, or no, I don't think it is. From what I know of your business and that, this would probably be a bridge too far, and you might want to consider teaming with somebody else and being in a role as prime contractor, or someone else being a prime and you be a sub. And I can assist you with putting together your teaming agreement, your subcontracting agreement, and save you money on putting those templates together if you wanted to do that. But this is just an example of a city bid for this one little commodity. Right now, Bloomington has about 25 things open for bid. And on the next slide, Bloomington's really got a well-organized vendor registration system. And when you click on that vendor registration, you can get registered with them, and they email bids directly to you by your commodities or by your goods and services. This is something that Columbus, for an example, because I'm in Columbus today, will be doing for themselves in the future. And I see this in most towns that are in a population of greater than 70,000. And according to US Census, once a town has hit 70,000, including the market supportable area, MSA they call it, they include that population, they are therefore called a city. Even though sometimes you come into some little towns and they'll go the city of Nashville or the city of Nullbone, they're just doing that cosmetically. They are really still incorporated towns, but they are governments. Next slide. So far we've looked at towns and cities, and before I jump into county here, I will say this: for Indianapolis, they are very well organized. They have set-aside programs for different minorities, disadvantaged businesses. They have a good vendor system. Their bids are announced out there. They're easy to follow. The proposals are the statement of works are well written. And if you register to do work with the city of Indianapolis, well, then that's something I can help you with. And so with the counties, for counties, and I got down there bids for the county of Monroe. I've listed Monroe because remember I said Bartholomew County advertises bids in the newspaper, and I didn't bring that paper up to show you examples. So in this example I'm about to show you is where I brought up Monroe County, and they advertise in two areas. Next slide. So the first area they advertise is for their highway department. And if you look down where my yellow arrow is, matter of fact, I just met a company this morning that drives in metal steel posts for solar devices. And I told them, well, you could use that $200,000 piece of equipment that drives in metal rails along the highway, down Highway 65. In fact, we're doing work right here just south of Columbus on the highway with the State Highway Department and federal. And they're driving in guardrails. But you can see right there, Monroe County is looking for guardrails that they're going to put on some of their county roads. So if we look at the next slide, and I was in the guardrail business, this is what how they're looking at it. Now, they didn't have a very sophisticated statement of work here. What they've done, they've listed the parts that they want installed. And so a company, all they would do is take this one-page document, put in their unit cost for those type of beams and the treatment and the guardrails and that would be their low-cost bid. Sometimes a county will ask, most counties, towns, and cities have low-cost bids. They're not best value. That includes your cost plus how you would do the work and the best value. And they use a weighted average, giving each one a weight. But most local governments don't do that. They're pretty quick and dirty on, give us your price, we're going with low bid, and usually they look at 3 or more at their bid openings and that. It's very important, and I go to a lot of these, that you go to the site visits. They're before the date the bid would be due like this. Not only do you get to see the work where it's going to be done, you get to talk to the contracting office, you get to talk to the other vendors in the area that you may want to team with. So it's kind of a marketing social experience when you go out to these site visits. I just went to one at Lake Monroe, which was a federal bid, which we'll get into in a little bit. of cutting the grass. That's $1 million contract. That takes over 6 different lawnmowers, plus the trash and rest areas. But all those greenways around Lake Monroe, for 5 months, all that grass has to be cut and trimmed and everything. So going down there on the site visit really helps you make an understanding how to put your bid together, meeting other teaming partners, getting to meet the Corps of Engineers, things like that. So that's a good example of that, since that lake is nearby us and it's federally run. Next slide. So here's the second portion of government in Monroe County. They got it broken down. One was by the Department of Transportation. Well, this is with their infrastructure projects. You've heard at the top, at the federal level, the president talking about funding for infrastructure. This is how it's going to trickle down to a county level. And you can look down there at sample roads and the bike trails, the different pathway projects. And here in Columbus, we have a lot of trails and pathways and stuff. That concrete that's laid down and the cutting of that grass and maintenance of those trailways, this is how it's advertised originally. But I noticed one thing in Monroe County, if you click on any of those bids down there, none of them open up. And that's because on the right where my yellow arrow is, Lisa Ridge, the highway director, she wants you to coordinate with her directly. Because every one of those projects were designed by architects or design landscaping people, and they have the drawings. They want you to get them from them or meet with them to see if your company can actually do this kind of type of work. And I just did some work with a street cleaner that went around an entire trail system in the town. I think it was Seymour, that cleaned the whole town's trail system with their power brushes. And I wouldn't even have thought of that. I always thought they stayed on streets, but they go on those bike trails and that. And I guess when they shut them down at night, they do it at night with their lights on. So anyway, that's an example of 2 bid sites out of 1 county, very well organized. I find a lot of times when I work with this 1 county out of over 90 or more here in the state, and then I got all the counties throughout the other states in the country that you can bid for, depending on how far you want to travel and provide your goods and services. When they're set up like this is something to shoot for in a community. Because when you do get federal money or state money down to the county level, you can disperse it quickly and develop budgets to expend that money quickly and get those projects accomplished. Next slide. So at the state level, we have 50 states. And those yellow arrows I got down on the left there. Here in Indiana, on our 4th marketing effort, Indiana's really broken into 2 that I show here, but there's really 3. I'm going to tell you what the 3rd one is in a second. But Indiana has the Department of Administration, which is all the state agencies, the prisons, the lottery, everything but transportation in the universities. And there's a link that you don't see right there, but I'm going to show you some pictures of what's on those links in a second here. But you'd want to get registered with the IDOA and the IDOT. They do have minority business entity programs and DBEs, disadvantaged business entity programs. They have programs for veterans, people under mental and physical disabilities acts, blind, different set-aside programs in that. And then down the last 2 there is how to register with them so you can have their bids sent to you directly from those sites. So when you do get these slides, you'll be able to click on those and go right to those vendor registration sites. And as a counselor, I can also assist you with getting registered with them. Next slide. So on this one, this is the IDOA, and this is define current opportunities. All I did is I typed in bidding opportunities for IDOA or Indiana, and it gave me a list of current solicitations. And down on the bottom there are the supplier portal and then how to submit electronic bid. They do everything electronically. So let's look at the next slide. Here's where I opened up their bid notices, and they had a lot of them. So I'm just pointing at the first one there, which is continuous monitoring security systems. So if I had a security company that put up cameras and installed them in that, I would go to this bid, and over on the far right where it says details, if we look at the next slide, I clicked on that to get the statement of work, to look at the bid package. And here it kind of gives a synopsis of kind of what they're looking for, and the buyer's name, which is really good because I can email and talk to, in her case. And then if you click on the view the bid package on the next slide, it's going to bring up not just the bid package, but pictures of maybe the building, the drawings, specifications in these different slides right here. Now, I'm not going to open them all up, but what we'll do on the next slide is take a look at the bid package, the first page. So on this one here, I got a yellow arrow pointing that this bid notice is 22 pages. So you would read through this, and if you felt this was a viable bid, you could send this to me as your counselor, and I'd read it as well with you. And then I would tell you, well, this is what's involved here. We got to do a cover letter. We got to fill out some of their forms, and we want to attach a capability statement, and we want to get it in by this date. And one thing I do, and I try and teach you, is how to write a one-page draft timeline and outline to make sure you should even be bidding on this. And this helps you make a decision, like go, no go. And in the future, we'll be doing webinars, which will be on how to respond to a bid proposal like this. But right now, we're focused on marketing. So anyway, this is an example of this continuous monitoring of electronic security system. And according to the topic or the subject that matches your company, that's what you would find in these bid notices. Next slide. So now the second one I told you about Indiana, a different department, is the IDOT, and they also have minority diversity programs. You can set up for, they have set-asides. And if you look down at my yellow arrow there, it says bid opportunities and bid tabulations. So not only are they going to show you bids they have out there, they're going to show you bids they awarded and the prices. So that helps you put your costs together in that for your fully burdened rates and inclusive with your other direct costs and overhead and G&A and things like that. You can see what other companies bidded in the past. You can also learn who the incumbents are and also people who were awarded. Now, this is a big deal. I should always go after people that were awarded contracts to try to team with them. Because sometimes they don't have all their employees, they don't have all their equipment and supplies because they're doing multiple projects, and they win another bid and they can't service it, and you look pretty good walking up saying, I'd love to team on specific things on this project. That's a good way to pick up additional work teaming with somebody without even putting in a bid. So next slide. So here we open up the bid viewer on the DOT, and it says view bid opportunities. And when you click on that on the next slide, we see all their different bids, and they're kind of like the DOA. So I read through those, and I have a company that was looking for trailers recently, and here's a 20-foot trailer. So I clicked on the right arrow over there on the bid number, and it brought me the bid. This bid had 25 pages. I read through it. It included the specs and pictures of the existing trailers they have and things they want on it, lights, electrical, the type tires, the weight, everything I need. And in fact, this was passed on to a trailer business down in Bedford that I'm working with. And they're probably going to be going after this one. This one was due back in March, if you look down at the bid due date there. So that's pretty important. So that's another good example of a bid notice out there. Next slide. So now on vendor registration, this is IDOA. This is where you'd go to the supply portal and you would register. And on the next slide is your vendor registration for the IDOT. Now, the only thing I haven't shown you here is the universities. A lot of them are under the Board of Regents, and as they trickle down and become into their own colleges, Indiana University, the state, the Ball State, Ivy Tech, all of them have contracting offices. A lot of them, the people, their buyers are the College of Business, the College of Athletics, the different colleges on campus. And they push them all to the contracting offices, and then they put them out on the university websites. So that's something I can assist you with on registering with the universities. I have one company that makes dorm room furniture that's only rented out during while class is in. And then they pull all that furniture off those campuses and put them in the warehouses. So they're interested in just university campuses nationwide. So this is how we would go look for them. So it would be DOT or the DOA. The next slide. Well, now we're at the big federal level. And the federal level is a whale or an elephant. And you can eat an elephant, but you got to do it a little bit at a time. First of all, you got to understand it. Number one, the federal government has 3 branches of government. We all know that. Legislative, our congressional, our executive, and judicial, legislative, and executive. Under that, they have 49 departments. Department of Defense, Department of, for EPA, for energy, they have departments for Social Security, and on and on. Under that, they have 1,200 federal agencies. So when we talk about getting and working with the federal government, we got to have some focus. And we can do that as counselors with you, depending on what your products and services are and who we want to target. On the way over here today, I was called by a gentleman down in Evansville, and he wanted to do power washing during hurricanes and disasters after, to clean up stuff. And he wanted to know how to get on the National Disaster Registry of the federal government. So this is an example of how he would do that. Now that would be a bid. Those are awarded because of disasters. That's a little separate. But on our 5th marketing effort, and for some reason, this yellow link that's popped up, that's great. That's how it would look on the others where my yellow line is there. But the one below it is not showing right now, but that would be another yellow link. But what I'm going to do here, to do business with the federal government, you got to be registered with them. To be vetted with them, you got to be issued a Commercial Activity Government Entity Code. It's called a CAGE code, CAGE. They're going to run your business through the Indiana Secretary of State to see if you're registered as a viable business in Indiana. They're going to look and see if you have a 9-character, numeric number with Dun & Bradstreet. That's the data uniform numbering system. They're going to take a look, do you have a bank account with a routing and account number for electronic fund transfer, because they're not printing checks. They're going to take a look at your NAICS codes, your North American Industrial Classification System codes, representing your services. They want to look at your product service codes. What are the codes that they need to look at, represent the products that you're selling? We're going to put all that on one system called SAM, System for Award Management. And that's one system to be registered with 1,200 agencies. Can you imagine if Indiana had one system just to be registered with over 900 towns? If you're a website designer out there, there's some work for you right there. Come up with an unsolicited proposal to the state of Indiana to task organize all the towns to be interconnected for everything. Their events, their bids, that'd be a pretty cool achievement. Then you could market it out to the other 49 states. But anyway, that's a need. If we go to the next slide, here's the SAM system. Now see that beta up there? As of the 17th of this month, that beta is going to disappear. It's just going to be called sam.gov. Now, remember this, .com is a fee, .gov is free. A lot of companies come to me and say, well, Andy, I'm getting this offer here, and they're wanting $5,000 or they're wanting $200 to do this or that. Is this viable? And I always say, yes, those are viable offers from viable businesses out there. But if you go through the Indiana Economic Development Corporation's PTAC program, we're a .gov, we're free. I would exhaust free for at least a year and then make up your own mind on what to use from there on out. I have yet, in my 12 months being in Indiana, had any businesses not drop me to take on paying a fee. I'll tell you right now, save the money, put it towards a Christmas or summer picnic for your employees this summer, and then you can invite me, of course. And then we can celebrate the fact that we did good and won a government contract. But in this example here of sam.gov, where it has keywords right there, we're looking for a bid. I had a guy cold call me last week about monkey squirrels, that he had a park where he had these exotic animals, and he was wanting to know, did the federal government, what do they do with the animals after they test them, like monkeys and birds and different things that under the Centers of Disease Control. A lot of people don't know it, but during COVID, we tested over 30 different animals for reaction, especially bats. and how they're contracting and how they react to that. And some of the animals that they tested, well, now they're through doing that stuff, and these animals need to be taken in somewhere. So one potential customer would be a zoo, right? So and on the next slide, you're going to see where I typed in the keywords squirrel monkeys. And look what happened. A bid came out, and it's by the Health and Human Services, the department, at federal level, under the FDA. They've been doing some testing on these squirrel monkeys. So if we go to the next slide, there's the actual bid document. I downloaded it. And if we go to the next slide, we can actually see the bid document. And it says that the FDA plays a critical role in doing all this testing. But as you read through it, it talks about it's seeking, under the scope of work, accredited sanctuary to provide a safe haven for these monkeys. But they're not going to charge it. You have to just come down and pick them up, and they're down in Arkansas. So I gave this good news to him, and he put in his bid for this. I haven't heard the results of it yet, but hopefully he'll get it. And if you're visiting a animal haven near Seymour in the future, and there's squirrel monkeys there, well, you knew it came from this bid. So, next slide. So now on this slide, like I was talking about earlier, to register, this is where you go to sam.gov. I would be very careful going to some .coms to do registrations with the federal government and paying them a fee for something that is free. I'm a poet, I guess. But anyway, the way to sign in on this thing, you'd log in on the top, you'd create a user account. Next slide. And, I got ahead. Let's go back one slide. You'd create a user account on here, and then it would start asking you questions about your bank account, your routing number, because it does electronic fund transfer. It's going to ask about how many employees you've had. Did you file taxes last year? Questions, business-related questions. And what this registration is going to give you is a cage code. With the cage code, as a counselor, I will develop a government procurement action plan for you on the steps we're going to need to do next to go look for bid opportunities or market like we're doing now and winning a contract. And right now I'm working with maybe 80 businesses that are all in phase one of administrative registrations like this and getting their credentials and certifications for the different types of set-asides at the federal level. And then the other portion of people I work with are marketing and looking for bid opportunities, and the others have won contracts and they're servicing those contracts. So the next slide. A lot of times I get asked by people, well, does the government buy what I'm selling? And again, I went to look at zip code 47522. At the time I was, this is Odin, Indiana, near Crane. And I pulled it up because I felt that was like nowhere, Indiana down there, even though it was near a big military installation. But, you know, what opportunities would be down there? And what I was looking for is who's won contracts there? How much money is coming out of that area from the federal government? So I put in these variables here, and there's a link up there where my yellow arrow is that you'll be able to click on. And if you follow my award search, put in the location, United States, the zip code, and submit search, you're going to get the next slide, which is usaspending.gov. And under award search right there, over there on the left shows the amount of what the federal government has spent. Okay, and that was just in response to COVID. So you can imagine what was really spent for everything that comes up on this system. But notice this is usaspending.gov, not .com. Don't be paying a fee for this information. Some companies go on this very site, pull data off of this, and sell it to you. So, you know, I'd rather, instead of fooling with the hose out in the yard, I'd rather go to the faucet like this. So if we go to the next slide, I've clicked on award search, and on the left, I put in my search criteria, and it came back and said that in the Odin area, in that zip code, that's the amount of government federal contracts that was awarded. I could also, if you look at that going across, it shows IDVs, grants, direct payments, loans, and other. You can dig into this data and look at every PPP that's been awarded for the payroll payment program, the EIDL, now the shutter grants for the playhouses and theaters, the RRFs, which is the restaurants and bars that can claim a grant assistance because of COVID. We can also look at SBA loans, veterans for the Patriots, a regular loan through the banks, any farmer that's getting any type of subsidies through spraying of their fields or water runoff or terracing. That's what's shown in these different categories. But in this example here, I just wanted to know, is this a viable market for me that government contracts are being awarded? And of course it is. But here's a little town, Odin, and in that zip code, that's what, up there in Westgate, near the town of Crane, between the two, is over 40 businesses sitting there, with even Purdue University Academy sitting right outside the gate of a federal installation, which is run by the Navy, Army, and the Marines, mainly the Navy. Next slide. So then I thought, well, if we can get all that information out of this system, what could we get if we put in a NAICS code specifically for like janitorial 561720? So I did the whole thing again, and on the next slide, under the same system, it came back and it lists below there all the different companies as primes that I could contact, or all the government agencies on all those different contracts that were awarded. And then it lists the dollar amounts under the award amount on the right. So I know there's a viable market in that area for my janitorial services. Just a matter of me getting my capability statement out and marketing to them. And this is something we can do together to try and figure out who to target. Remember I said earlier, there's 1,200 federal agencies under 49 departments. And right here, we know out of 3 agencies under DOD, Army, Navy, and Marines, in this area are awarding all these contracts just for janitorial work. So we could look at other things, other commodities, other services and products. Next slide. Okay, so in conclusion, today, I always think if you're on a webinar or a conference, you should go back to the boss and give them 3 things you learned today. So the 3 things you want to go back and take this slide and just don't let them see you holding it, that you learned about this thing called PTAC. And you're either enrolled with them and using their free services, which is no cost to the company, or we're not using them, we need to enroll and find out where Andy's at and have him visit us. Number 2, you've learned how to find bids and look for vendor registrations on a very quick and dirty process here for town, city, county, state, and federal. So whenever someone asks me, I want to do business with the government, I always have to break them down. Which government? What are you thinking about? You want to cut trees down? Well, that could be town, city, and county probably. Maybe some state road work. You know, that's how my mind starts thinking, depending on what their service or product is. And then the third one in there is, now you know how to go to usaspending.gov to look at where the government is spending contracts, grants, direct payments, loans, and other amounts that are going out. That's true transparency through our government. Next slide. Okay, now I always try and get us to about 45 minutes into the presentation with 15 minutes left to look at any questions that are on the chat. If you don't have a chat today and you want to email me separately or privately, you can do that. That'd be great. I'll respond to it. And but this is the organization I work for here in Indiana, with the IADC. We want to triple our defense contracts spending from the government and bring that money into Indiana. So I'm all about Indiana businesses, learning more about, especially the Department of Defense type awards that we can win. And that comes from the top people that I work for, who are working hard, going out to these businesses, out nationwide to the government to find opportunities for Indiana businesses. But you've got to be registered. You've got to get into marketing. And I would say use someone like me. Next slide. This is my contact information. Only thing you don't see on there is my email address, but it's aalexander@iadc.in. But if you Google Andy Alexander, Indiana, I'm gonna pop up with my territory and my contact information. So at this time, I'll turn it back to Bob. And if we have any chats, I'll be glad to answer any questions. If not, then we can close our webinar.
Well, thank you, Andy. That was really informative. There's a lot of information in that. Does anybody on the call have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and.
See, is this call being recorded?
Yes, this call is being recorded and it will be available. We will upload it to the chamber website soon.
And the presentation will be sent as well.
All right, anyone else?
They all went marketing. This is good.
Well, if anyone has a hard time running Andy down, just give the chamber a call and I'm happy to make that connection. I know we're fortunate enough to have Andy around our chamber. He has helped a lot of our local chamber members and local businesses secure some of these government contracts that's been very instrumental in some of the business success that they've been having. So we are lucky to have Andy and I'm happy to make those connections back to everyone. So if no one else has any questions, I'll give everybody another shot.
There's the chat.
Oh, well, thanks. We love working with Andy too.
Oh.
Well, with that, let's go ahead and we'll get everybody off to lunch. I want to remind everybody, this week is Small Business Week. Make sure we've got the virtual Pitch Strong with Startup Studio from Velocity is going to happen at 2 o'clock today. Ribbon cutting tomorrow at Hog Molly at 4:30 and Founders Friday at 8 a.m. outside of Luca B Coffee. So I hope to see everybody at one of those events. And if no one has any more questions, enjoy the rest of your day. The sun is shining and it's beautiful. And I'd like to thank Andy for joining us today. And anything else you guys have?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.